We are Myth Vision. Welcome back to Myth Vision Podcast. We're going to talk about Scientology. Yes, the cult of Scientology. And I have a veteran, someone who really knows the inside story when it came to L. Ron Hubbard and its development, this cult back in the day when she was living on the ship with L. Ron Hubbard. And that is Karen de la Carriere. Welcome back to Myth Vision. How are you?
Derek, it seems forever. I missed you.
Missed you too.
Yeah.
You as well. I really hope everybody takes the time to go and subscribe to your YouTube channel, Surviving Scientology. You got a new banner up here letting everybody know to go subscribe, hit the videos, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, but check out the videos. There's some videos that we've done in the past. If you missed them on our channel, you can check them out on her channel. Really fun stuff. I mean, it goes on and on. And in fact, bumping into you, I didn't realize, I realized that Scientology was a little bit nutty, but I didn't realize it was this intense. So please, Karen, there's this figure who showed up in 1986, standing at a podium, pronouncing that L. Ron Hubbard had left this body to enter into
higher research.
Yes. And who is this man that we call David Miscavige? And, take us into this if you don't mind.
David Miscavige was a kid who always had asthma. And his parents brought him into Scientology because book one kind of says, we can cure headaches. You got migraines, you got asthma, you got bad eyesight. Piece of cake, we can handle that. So his parents brought him in, and he came to St. Hill as a youngster. He didn't do schooling beyond like 12 years old. However, he got into the Scientology doctrines very, very well. And I need to tell you a quick little story because the rest of his life followed this same pattern. He was known as a child prodigy. At 12 years old, he could do counseling and do the exact procedures. Nowadays, there's cameras in every counseling room recording everything you're being watched. In those days, 1972, 1973, there was no such thing. And guess what? He punched his own client, his own piece, they call it pre-clear, the girl sitting there to get Scientology counseling got punched violently by the counselor. Unheard of.
Wow.
And St. Hill was the pinnacle, highest. There was no flagged land base in Clearwater. There was no free wind ship. It was the place you went to, and it was an earthquake. It literally shook the foundations. And she came out doubled up after this counseling session with David Miscavige, just sobbing. And a camera crew was following him around because they had a monthly magazine called An Afternoon at St. Hill. That's the campus. They were following him around. He's a 12-year-old. Look what Scientology can even make a 12-year-old be magical. After this incident, the camera crew folded it. There was no magazine. And in fact, the whole magazine went out of publication. An Afternoon at St. Hill, after David Miscavige punched his own client, his own PC. So the urge to punch savagely was in him, even when he was 12 years old. That's the reason I told you this. His mother, whom I counseled, Loretta, she put up some pictures of the family. Loretta used to call him Little Hitler. Can you imagine the nickname of a youngster in a family? Little Hitler?
What?
He was called Little Hitler because when he would go off like a firecracker, he could beat, punch, slam. He went wild like a guy in wrestling or boxing. You couldn't stop him. He would punch, 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 punch. So little Hitler was just sort of an analogy of a violent person who wouldn't stop on any limit, had no limitations. So this guy at 12 years old, Scientology has always allowed youngsters to join the Sea Org. He joined the Sea Org without schooling, no college, no university, nothing like that. Youngster, like 13, 14, youngster, got into Hubbard. So the monster we have today, who's brutal, is the exact result of Scientology doctrines. You got a comment? You got a comment, Derek?
Oh, I mean, it just, you phrased it before like he's just a mob boss. And, we typically, you wouldn't think like, all right, let's just use a modern example. If we found out a 12-year-old did something violent today, hurt somebody, we might go, now look, okay, that's not good. Okay, but you're not going to carry that the rest of your life. You made some mistakes as a young kid. Maybe you have anger problems, whatever. It's when you start to find out there's a pattern here. And once we see that it goes on into more examples, then it becomes a huge issue to point out. And you know what's also hypocritical about this? I bet anything, I'll bank on it, that if a kid today were in Scientology auditing somebody and did that, he'd boot him out on the street. Publicity. But he can do it, and don't worry, it's okay because it's him. It's one of those, people can they're above the law, so to speak. They can do whatever they want and get away with it. And he seems to be this figure. So, yeah.
Well spoken, Derek. Very succinct, well spoken. The reason I was right there when I didn't eyewitness it, but
same day, you were in the same building, you were right nearby.
I was a young intern at the time, and the intern supervisor said, now, we all know what happened with Miscavige. There is to be no more gossiping about this. We're going to put it in mothballs and end it. This is not going to go on and on and on. We're going to put it to rest. And I want you all to know you are forbidden to keep discussing this very unfortunate incident. We were ordered to shut up and not speak about it. And the very next day, Ron Miscavige, whom you interviewed, the father, took it a couple of days later. First, they were banned from the campus. The family were told, stay away. And in a couple of days, they went back to Philadelphia because they were only in England for Scientology services. So they were kicked out. And
who's the family? Just to make sure we're on the same page. Is this the family that David at 12 punched?
David's father, mother,
okay,
and sister, brother, because the siblings, the whole family was him and his sibling. I sent you a picture of the family.
Okay.
You can put it up there. Now, one day I was having dinner with Marty Rathburn, who was the second in command under David Miscavige's henchman for 20 years, who then came out and did Whistle Blue and went to Tampa Bay Times. Marty became a huge, now he's flip-flopped again. But I was having dinner with Marty and I told Marty this story. And I said, Marty, I'm not going to post this because people will say, she was punished severely by Miscavige those 6 months. She's got an axe to grind. She's just embellishing something, blah, blah. So I'm not going to post it. The very next week, somebody in Australia who was at St. Hill at the time posted the whole story. And I went in immediately under that comment and said, I was there. We were all forbidden to, I was right there. We were forbidden, muzzled and gagged to talk about it. So then I told my version. And then other people jumped in who were there. So the story was corroborated by people. I wasn't the first to initiate whistleblower. I only corroborated. See, Australia banned Scientology. It was banned. So 100 Australian families left Australia and went to England to do Scientology. So it was flooded with Australians. That's why these Australians, yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, yeah.
It's that serious that the whole country was not having it.
It was bad. It was bad. That's how I thought. It was just like, but you know, you wonder, Derek, you deal in all kinds of religions. How does a small little cult of 30,000 members, how does it bubble up to government level? I'll tell you why. They treat people so incredibly hideously that people run to their senator or their congressman or their councilman. They run and report what happened.
Yeah.
This eventually climbs up the command chains where people get, I mean, hundreds of congressmen in the United States have received letters of how they are bankrupt because Scientology ripped them off. That people they write letters, they complain. So eventually it becomes a government issue. What is this? What are we allowing here? Right? Okay, so that was David Miscavige as a youngster. Now, L. Ron Hubbard demanded $1 million in cash weekly in a suitcase be sent to him when he was hiding. $1 million every week. This has been corroborated in at least 6 different books by different authors who fact-checked $1 million. So David Miscavige would scam off cash from all these, and he was serving Hubbard. He was delivering $1 million a week to Preston Ranch, where Hubbard was hiding out from the IRS.
Mm.
So he became a favorite of L. Ron Hubbard. $1 million a week.
He accomplished it.
Didn't exactly leave Scientology for him to be the dictator, but he certainly didn't handle. He did put out a kind of triage that Church of Scientology, Church of Spiritual Technology had to manage RTC, RTC had to manage Scientology. There's a labyrinth of networks, and these people, there were checks and balances. David Miscavige threw all that out the window once Hubbard died.
I mean, that's just unreal. It's so crazy how it just blows me away how this movement stayed alive in light of this. That's what really gets me.
Yeah, it's had survival, no question about it. But a lot of things have had huge survival.
Right.
Let's take, who was the guy who had billions of dollars who was slaughtered? Not the Syrian. Who was this guy who was butchered on the streets of? They got him. Middle East.
Are you talking about butchered on the streets?
They absolutely. He was.
I don't know.
He had billions of dollars. I'll give you the name to just add it to the text. So you can have billions of dollars and you can still come a cropper. Look at Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Didn't he have a few billion? Wasn't he a billionaire?
Yeah, he's a billionaire.
Yeah, and he's in jail, and he lasted decades, 20, 30 years of daily pedophilia, and he lasted. So you can't have a shelf life, but you do have an expiration date.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
How many times would you say that he's done this violent act? Because we hear people, seen documentaries, I've heard many interviews where they talk about this, and when they're saying it, I try to be skeptical even of them, these people who are trying to say he did this or he did that. But when you see it and you're watching I can't imagine that these are actors. I mean, like, these people seem legit. And I say that as someone who's never been in Scientology, has never met this guy, whatever, because I try to, be cautious when I hear things. But hearing you tell me that this is what's going on when you were in the movement, knowing people who went through this, it's like, without a doubt, there has to be truth to this. I can't see any other way of looking at this, but that there is a reality to him being physically and verbally abusive to his fellow Scientology followers, or if you will, people who are in Scientology. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. About 12 different people who were personally punched or body slammed to the floor or punched in the gut and stomped on by David Miscavige went to Tampa Bay Times on video, on camera. Knowing the wrath and retaliation, they still did it. And CNN, I guess media watch each other, got so intrigued that they did a whole show called Scientology, A History of Violence. And it went on, it was a serial, day after day after day for 10 days, Monday to Friday, and the following Monday to Friday. I've got every show on my YouTube channel, but again, these people who already talked to Tampa Bay Times then told Anderson Cooper of CNN about the beatings. And Marty Rathburn, second in command, said at INT Base, there was a beating every day, every day. Miscavige believed in management by punishment.
Right.
But not punishment just, I mean, he would give a lot of, the first thing you got was sleep deprivation. You weren't allowed to go sleep in your bed. You had to go sleep in the field, in the wilderness. And to punish people sleeping in the wilderness, Miscavige would order other staff to turn on hoses and water them down. Huge hoses would go off to people who have no pillow, no blanket, they're exhausted, they're sleeping, and water showers them so they're drenched in wet. This is the kind of, this is Scientology conduct. This is Scientology punishment.
What the?
See, Hubbard would throw people overboard into water, so water torture or water punishment of some sort became Scientology culture.
One thing you said that really stuck out to me as an outsider is, if you're trying to be skeptical, as my audience is very skeptical, think about what Karen's saying here. There's a law of retaliation. She said that. And immediately, this is one of those like big red flags that came to my attention, is like, you would imagine, for example, Michael Jackson, right? People are going to come out and they're going to have fake stories. Some might be real, some might be fake, about allegations towards what he may or may not have done. They're going to do it for the publicity and they're going to do it for attention. With Scientology, you're not asking for that kind of publicity. In fact, you're not going to get what you would in a situation like Michael Jackson. You're going to get wrath. You're asking for the worst. And they know that. So why would they make this up to go and get absolutely hung on a cross and crucified on purpose? To me, it just seems counterintuitive, and it seems more probable that these cases, in all effects, are real, because these are the very people who have been fair gamed as well for these actions, for what they're saying. So they're being punished for doing this, and yet they still come out and speak out. So I'm quite impressed with their courage to do that.
Scientology, well spoken, that's good, that makes sense. Scientology is maniacal regarding punishment. It seems like there's no negotiation. There's no sitting you down and trying to talk it through, to say, this wasn't so good, can you try this? There's no talking. There's only a whip. Down, you dog. We'll teach you to not do that again. you piece of trash. And the vulgarities that David Miscavige used, oh God, they were posted over and over again on Marty Rathman's blog, even Mike Rinder's blog. Oh God, he would use the female genitalia on women, that she's an effing C, you know what I'm talking about. And talk about potty mouth. Every text he would write, you mother effing da, 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 da. Just the language was of a mobster. And yet he tried to say I'm equivalent to the Pope. He would try and say ecclesiastical, but he talked like the dirtiest, the language he used, the foul language, and it would be so unnecessary. So David Miscavige took power, Hubbard died, and then became the age of brutality, just brutality. But by now, people were locked in. They had left their families. They lived on campus in the base, and there was a meeting every day. Tampa Bay Times. I have a lot of, I mirrored some of the Tampa Bay Times. These people just came forward and talked about it. The very first book that revealed all the beatings was by Marc Headley, called Blown for Good. Blown, see blown, the blow, we define blow, escape. Blown for good means they'll never, he's gone for good, right? And he leaked a lot of these stories, and then people said, write a book. So he wrote the book, and he was interviewed by major media all over the world. And he, you know, the book is right there. The cult has never been able to stop the publication or the distribution or anything. So that's the Bible on the beatings. It's called Blown for Good. And Miscavige needs protection like any good mobster. So this extorting money and getting every dime, getting the gold out of your teeth if they could, give it to them, give money. It's to pay to firewall him with many law firms and private investigators to protect him and give him power and sustainability. That's how he's protected. Derek, you think of some poor district attorney and his budget, and the thought of taking on a cult with $3 billion and 11 law firms against. Do you see why a local DA won't get into it? What is his budget compared to a huge, and Scientology is known to be litigious, right? So, however, the Department of Justice has like 1,200 lawyers. Department of Justice, and you would say, why on earth did the IRS give them tax exemption? I know people who worked very, very hard because they felt Scientology is being wacko. They're off the rails because they owe the IRS $1 billion back taxes, blah, blah, blah. Let me help get them tax exemption. And once they get it, they'll all relax and they'll become good guys again. All this endless punishment and this agitation, that this madness will stop. That's what people believed. Guess what? Once they got tax exemption, the punishments went higher, more. They were now untouchable. They didn't lower the punishments. They escalated the punishments. Any comment?
Wow. Just, I mean, I'm already seeing him when he was saying, we did it, we won. I could see him talking about, we won the war. Like, he's a military.
War. You see his mindset.
Yeah, war, battles, violence.
The win-win.
Yeah.
He called it a war, a battle. He thinks in terms of combativeness and how he can beat and bash the other person.
Yep.
Interesting. Huh? The war.
Now, the one thing that we see this picture as we're wrapping things up for this episode, because we really could go on and on about David and this, is, you know, the picture you're painting, right, is the behind the scenes reality of what's been done to many countless people. But then there's this video that we want to play. And so before we play that video for everybody to see here at the end, what would you like to finish off this episode by letting them know?
Well, I want to say how Miscavige, in a way, helped me exit Scientology forever. I said something I should not have said. That's all. I just verbally said something. What I said was a couple of very high executives, Jesse Prince and Vicky Asnaran, were removed from posts. I told someone that. My punishment was to go to INT Base, the hierarchy, because I was located in Los Angeles. And the chief of security told ABC TV, I was ordered. David Miscavige came to me and said, that de la Carriere cunt. Am I allowed to say that word?
Yeah.
He said, work her manicured fingers to the bone. That was the order. The chief of security knew what that meant. He didn't have to say, work her like a slave or a dog. He said, work her manicured fingers to the bone. That meant cut her down to size, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had 6 months of the most horrible existence this lifetime. Hard labor, hauled out of bed at 2 a.m. for interrogatories. It was bad. It was rough. And I was separated from my 2-year-old son. I was a new mother with a 2-year-old. He was in Los Angeles. I was 2 hours away from Los Angeles. And Heba had been sent to Germany, my husband at the time, the international person, because Germany was just simply blowing up. They didn't want Scientology in Germany. I was blowing up to high heaven. So Heba was gone. I was forced to be at the hierarchy, INT Base, doing manual labor torture. And my 2-year-old, I didn't know who would take him up from the nursery, who would even, he was a 2-year-old orphan. Scientology could care less. They're going to punish you. You come here, you donkey slave. Down. So I had a 2-year-old completely separated from his parents. And this went on for 6 months. But this was the beginning of the end for me. I realized, whatever pipe dream I had, and Miscavige personally ordered all of this. So when I reveal stuff and people say, oh, she just has an axe to grind. Mm-hmm. No, I'm speaking truths. Go look up, just Google Scientology, David Miscavige. Go Google on YouTube, Scientology. They had teams of people removing. At one point, if you Googled David Miscavige assault and battery, you got something like 7,000 hits. If you put David Miscavige beatings in Google, you got 3,900 hits. Google would tell you how much his beatings were reported. Mm-hmm. They had teams of people on mission handling these websites and deleting and doing takedowns. All they were doing was protecting his image. He's very, very much wants a good image. So over to you now.
Yeah, it reminds me
of the story of how he treasures his image.
Here is the video of him treasuring his image again. Small man syndrome, thinking he's bigger than what he is, and he has to hurt others in the process to remain that way. But check out this video and just look at his face when he gets these compliments and you hear the applause of the people.
Ahora, debo las gracias a usted, señor Miscavige, puesto que considero que el ejemplo no es una forma de enseñar, es la única, y usted es el mejor ejemplo.
Now, I need to thank you, Mr. Miscavige, because I consider that teaching by example is not just a way of teaching, it is the only way, and you are the best example.
Я выражаю огромную признательность моему мужу Вадиму, который всегда был со мной рядом в самые трудные времена. Я хочу выразить благодарность всей команде ГКПЧ России, команде Международной ГКПЧ, персоналу морской организации Москвы и Лос-Анджелеса, а также председателю ЦРТ. Спасибо вам. Без вас мы бы не достигли того, что имеем сейчас.
I want to thank my husband, Vadim, who was always beside me when things got rough. I want to thank all the CCHR Russia team, the team at CCHR International, Sea Org members in Moscow and Los Angeles, and COBRTC. Without all of you, we wouldn't have accomplished what we did. Thank you.
This boy ain't even warmed up. I'd like to thank my wife and family for their help and support. I'd like to thank staff of all missions, orgs, the Sea Org, RTC for keeping the tech pure, and you, Mr. Miscavige, for everything that you do, sir.
And thank you so much for checking out this episode. Be sure to like the video on your way out and go subscribe to Karen's YouTube channel. If you want to help support us, you can also join the Patreon. There's so much more. We are Myth Vision.